Mom kicked me out with 48 hours notice, said I did belong there anymore. I still remember the exact way my mother looked at me when she said it. Cold. Detached. Like I was a stranger standing in her kitchen instead of the daughter she'd raised for 26 years. You have 48 hours to get your things, she said, folding her arms. This house isn't yours anymore, and honestly, you don't belong here. Belong. That word hit harder than the eviction. I had helped pay the mortgage for 3 years. I covered utilities when Mom fell behind. I bought groceries when my younger sister, Ashley, decided she was too stressed to work. But somehow, I didn't belong. Ashley stood behind her, leaning against the counter, smirking. She didn't even try to hide it. Mom's right, she added sweetly. You've always acted like you're better than us. Maybe it's time you live somewhere that fits your attitude. Better than them. No. Just more responsible. But responsibility doesn't sparkle the way charm does, and Ashley had always sparkled. The golden child. Ashley was 2 years younger than me, but you'd think she was royalty. Growing up in Ohio, my mom used to say, Ashley has a special light. Apparently, I was just fluorescent overhead lighting. Functional, replaceable. When Dad died, I was 21. Ashley was 19. I dropped out of grad school to help Mom with bills. Ashley switched majors 3 times because she hadn't found herself yet. When Ashley crashed Mom's car. It was an accident, honey. When I forgot to pay the internet bill 1 time. You're so irresponsible. I can't rely on you. So when Mom said the house wasn't mine anymore, I wasn't shocked. Just tired. The bombshell. What do you mean it's not mine? I asked calmly. Mom reached into the kitchen drawer and pulled out paperwork. I refinanced the house 6 months ago. My stomach dropped. With Ashley's name on it. I stared at the documents. I had been sending Mom $1,200 every month. She told me it was for the mortgage. Where did my money go? I asked. Mom didn't answer. Ashley did. To help with the refinancing process, legal fees, adult stuff. Adult stuff. I felt heat rush up my neck. You used my money to put the house in her name. Mom's voice hardened. It was my decision. Ashley will start a family one day. She needs stability. And I do. You're independent, Mom said dismissively. You don't need us. That's the thing about being the strong one. They assume you don't break. The truth behind it. Hear what they didn't know. I had recently been promoted at my marketing firm in Columbus. Quietly. I hadn't told them yet. My salary had doubled. I was planning to move out within the year anyway. But I was also planning to give Mom one last financial boost before leaving. I had saved $40,000. I was going to surprise her by paying off a chunk of the mortgage. Instead, I was standing in the kitchen being told I didn't belong. Funny how timing works. 48 hours. Fine, I said finally. I'll be gone in 48 hours. Ashley's smirk widened. She thought she'd won. But revenge doesn't scream. It plans. Night 1. I packed quietly. Every memory folded into cardboard boxes. Dad's old watch. My childhood trophies. The quilt my grandmother made before she passed. Around midnight, I overheard Ashley in the living room. She won't last a month, she laughed. She's too uptight. Mom chuckled. Maybe this will humble her. Humble me. For working. For paying bills. For sacrificing. I didn't cry. I made a phone call instead. The call. Hi, Mr. Dalton, it's Ava. My boss sounded surprised. Ava, everything okay? Yes, actually, I'm ready to relocate sooner than expected. There was a pause. To New York, he asked carefully. Yes. The New York branch, the position I'd been offered, the one I hesitated to accept because I didn't want to leave Mom struggling. Mr. Dalton exhaled slowly. If you're serious, the director position is yours, but it means starting in 2 weeks. I'll be there. Ashley wanted me humbled. Instead, she just accelerated my timeline. The final morning. On the last morning, I loaded my car. Mom stood on the porch, arms crossed. "You'll understand one day," she said. "Understand what?" "That family comes first." I looked at Ashley behind her. "Exactly," I replied. And I drove away. What they didn't know. They thought I'd crumble. They thought I'd call within a week, begging to come back. They didn't know 3 things. 1, I had proof. I'd been paying the mortgage. 2, the refinancing paperwork had a mistake. 3, the house wasn't as secure in Ashley's name as they believed. And I wasn't as powerless as they assumed. 2 weeks later, New York City. Standing in my glass office overlooking Manhattan, I finally allowed myself to breathe. I belonged here. But revenge isn't about destruction. It's about balance. And balance was coming. Because 3 months after I left, the bank sent a letter. Not to me. To Ashley. 3 months after I left Ohio, my phone rang at 6:12 a.m. Ashley. I stared at the screen, while Manhattan's skyline glowed outside my apartment window. Decline. She called again. And again. On the 4th try, I answered. "What?" I said calmly. Her voice was shaking. "Did you do something?" I smiled slightly. "Good morning to you too." The bank sent a foreclosure notice. There it was. The word. Foreclosure. I swiveled in my office chair and looked out over the city that had become mine. "Strange," I said softly. "I thought you had everything under control. Adult stuff, right?" Silence. Then, they're saying payments were inconsistent. That refinancing paperwork has discrepancies. Mom doesn't understand any of this. Of course she didn't. Because I had been the one making the payments. What really happened? After moving to New York, I did something simple. I stopped paying. For 3 years, I had transferred $1,200 monthly to Mom's account. The mortgage auto-pay had been set up under her login, but funded by my deposits. When she refinanced and removed my name from anything connected to the property, she also removed the only person actually sustaining it. They assumed I'd keep paying out of guilt. They underestimated me. And here's the twist they never saw coming. During refinancing, the bank had requested proof of consistent income tied to the payments. Mom submitted her statements. But the deposits were clearly labeled from me. The underwriter flagged it. They approved conditionally. Meaning, if third-party funding stopped, the loan could be reevaluated. And I had just stopped. The panic. 2 days later, Mom called. Not angry. Terrified. "Ava, honey," she said, voice trembling. "We need to talk." "We." Now it was we again. "You said I didn't belong," I reminded her. "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." Silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, "We might lose the house." I let that sink in. I didn't feel joy. Just balance. The truth comes out. "Did you know," I said calmly, "that I was the one covering most of the mortgage?" Mom didn't answer immediately. "I assumed you were helping," she said carefully. "Helping?" I laughed softly. "I was paying it." Ashley must have been in the room because I heard her gasp. "That's not true," she snapped. "It's very true. Check your bank records, 3 years." There was shuffling, whispering. Then Ashley again, quieter this time. "Oh my God." Mom's breathing grew heavier. "You never said anything," she murmured. "You never asked." The visit. A week later, I flew back to Ohio. Not because they demanded it. Because I wanted closure. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked smaller. Less powerful. Mom opened the door before I knocked. She looked older. Ashley avoided eye contact. We sat at the same kitchen table, where I'd been told I didn't belong. The foreclosure notice lay between us. "What do you want?" Ashley asked bitterly. There it was. Not "how do we fix this?" "What do you want?" I leaned back calmly. "I want acknowledgement." Mom swallowed. "Of what?" "That I carried this family financially for 3 years." Silence. "That I sacrificed." More silence. "And that you threw me out the moment you thought I wasn't necessary." Mom's eyes filled with tears. Ashley looked ashamed for the first time in her life. The real power move. Here, what they didn't know. I could afford the house now. Easily. My director position in New York paid more than double what I used to make, plus bonuses. I didn't need the house, but I did need self-respect. "I spoke to the bank," I said calmly. "They're willing to restructure, but only if the primary payer is clearly established." Mom looked confused. Ashley looked nervous. I continued. "That means either you two qualify independently, or I become the official owner." Ashley shot up. "Absolutely not." I tilted my head. "Then qualify on your own." She couldn't. She'd been unemployed for 6 months. The choice. I slid a document across the table. A buyout agreement. "I'll purchase the house at current value. You can stay for 6 months rent-free while you figure things out. After that, you'll pay market rent or move." Ashley looked like she'd swallowed glass. Mom stared at the paper with shaking hands. "You'd own it," she whispered. "Yes." The same house I didn't belong in. Now entirely mine. The breaking point. Ashley exploded. "You're doing this to control us." I looked her straight in the eyes. "No, I'm doing this because I learned control is the only thing you respect." That shut her up. Mom started crying. "I made a mistake," she said softly. "I thought Ashley needed me more." "And I did," I asked. She couldn't answer. Because she finally saw it. 6 months later. The house was legally mine. Ashley tried to find work. Reality hit her hard. Mom became quieter, kinder. They paid rent for 4 months. Then Ashley moved in with a boyfriend in another state. Mom chose to move into a smaller condo I helped her purchase, with clear boundaries and shared ownership documents. This time, everything was transparent. Everything was equal. One final conversation. The day Mom moved out, she stood in the empty living room. "I was wrong about you," she said softly. I nodded. "I know. You always belonged." I looked around the house. "I don't need to belong here anymore." And I meant it. Because belonging isn't about houses. It's about knowing your worth. Epilogues, New York, 1 year later. I sold the Ohio house for a profit. Used the equity to buy a brownstone in Brooklyn. Fully mine. No shared names. No hidden paperwork. Mom visits sometimes. Our relationship is slower now. Healthier. Ashley. She calls occasionally. Less sparkle. More humility. And me. I stopped proving myself to people who benefit from doubting me. They gave me 48 hours to leave. But what they really gave me was freedom. The end.